In the run-up to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's visit to India later this month, both countries are working towards strengthening trade ties. Germany's commitment of 10 billion euros of government-supported investments in India by 2030, targeted largely towards green energy projects, is slated to make headlines as new investment treaties get inked. But Germany's own economy is still not exactly out of the woods, with contraction in growth, low factory output and unemployment numbers stacking up. And then there's the rise of the right-wing political party AfD and illegal immigration adding to its woes. As the 7th India-Germany Intergovernmental Consultations commence, synchronized with the 18th edition of the larger Asia-Pacific cooperation, we decode what shape commerce between the world's fourth largest economy Germany and the world's fastest growing economy India will take. Stefan Halusa is the Director General of the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, who has seen India at close quarters over the last 4 years.
The most visible change that we can see is the change in the infrastructure, the speed in which new streets are being built, highways are being built, ports, airports are being built. This is impressive, and of course the speed of digitization. This is something that is impressive, that you can do basically all your shopping online and digitally. You don't need money anymore, you don't need cash anymore, and that is also at a very impressive speed.
Okay, so Stefan, take us through what preparations are underway for the 7th IGC. I'm sure your schedule is going to be so hectic right now, just trying to put all those pieces together. But share with us, what is it that we should expect as headlines emerging from the 7th IGC?
Well, there will be two events happening at the same time. If I may take you through both of them.
Sure.
We will also have the 18th edition of the Asia-Pacific Conference of the German Business happening in Delhi from the 24th to the 26th of October. And that means that we're expecting about 800 delegates from government and from industry, from India, from Germany, but also from the Indo-Pacific regions to discuss all the important matters that are impacting the business and economic development in the region, but also in the Indo-German corridor. So that is going to be a two-day conference, and the Indo-German Governmental Consultations, which, as you said, it happened for the 7th time, they're happening in parallel on the 25th of October. So we're going to see a very intense 2 or 3 days of Indo-German relations and discussions on all levels, be it government, be it business, and of course government to business, about everything that is at this moment driving Indo-German relations.
Right. So I think, one thing that really stands out in the Indo-German partnership, and this is something that got discussed in the 6th Intergovernmental Consultation as well, when Prime Minister Modi had traveled to Germany in 2022, and that is the emphasis on green energy.
Yes.
So how do you see that have progressed in the last 2 years, and where are we headed when we talk about green energy and the energy transition which both the countries are in partnership with towards achieving?
Yeah, both countries basically have the same issues. We are both depending on the import of fossil fuels in the moment. So I think the importance of the energy transformation is very visible in both of the countries. And there are various cooperation initiatives between the countries. There's the Indo-German Energy Forum, which has been established already in 2006. But most recently at RE Invest, we launched, or the two governments launched, the Indo-German platform.
That's right.
To attract investment into the renewable energy sector, not only in India and Germany, but globally. And there the idea is to bring together investors and technology providers to make sure that this transition is speeding up, because we see with the weather phenomena all around the world in just recent weeks that there is a necessity. So I think that will increase the speed of transformation by bringing together the players from the different stakeholders that are required to make that move.
So while governments seem to be completely aligned when it comes to climate change and tackling climate change as a global problem, is there enough private capital available in green technologies, and is there enough interest in the venture capital and the private equity ecosystem to actually invest in new ideas around green transition?
I think there is enough capital available. It has to be, it has to be accessible for the different projects. And I think this is something where it is good to put the structures in place and to bring the players together, because we need to understand where is it happening. I mean, you have the whole transformation of how energy is being produced. There's the drive towards green hydrogen. So there's a lot of different steps that need to be taken, and it needs to be structured. There needs to be a process in place to actually build up the whole ecosystem. So I think it is the materialization, the implementation that needs to be structured in a certain way, and then the funds, I believe, will be available.
Okay, so energy production and green energy transition is one part of the equation. The other is this whole debate around electric mobility. So India has its own targets. By 2030, India is expected to have 70% of its passenger vehicle fleet converted to electric. And I'm not talking hybrid or any other green hydrogen or any flex fuel. I'm talking pure electric. Germany, on the contrary, is looking at 100% of its fleet conversion by 2035. I was speaking to a few drivers of Uber and Bolt when I was visiting Germany last month, and the broader message seems to be that perhaps companies have not really seen through this transition from ICE engines to electric mobility to cater to what they refer to as range anxiety. Do you see technology moving at a speed to enable this transition to happen seamlessly?
I think the technology is available, will become available. I mean, you see how much the range has increased over the last just 2 or 3 years. And there's a lot of R&D going into this topic to make sure that the ranges are extending. So that issue, I think, can be addressed. The other two issues that I would see is, first of all, of course, the price, the cost of battery electric vehicles and the drivetrain. So there it is important to come up to scale to make it competitive against ICE engines. So that is one topic to focus on, how, and also where governmental support will be required, I think, to make sure that the industry can scale up, because it will bring down the cost. And the other is charging infrastructure. I mean, what we need to make sure is that we have a very dense systems of charging points as we have with fuel. I mean, this is there's a gas station at every corner, and there's no range anxiety there. So the question is really, how fast can we improve here, and how fast can we build up the necessary infrastructure for charging?
So what are the kind of collaborations that you are anticipating in the upcoming IGC and the APK IGC, specifically between India and Germany, and APK for the entire ASEAN region and Germany, when it comes to exchange of technology and capital investment into both green energy as well as green mobility?
I think what we will see there is, of course, a lot of interaction, and what we see, that's the target of the whole Asia-Pacific conference, is bring the players together, give them a platform to discuss this topic. Because from a German point of view, I think what is important to see, and this is again part of the Asia-Pacific conference objective, is to see that the growth, the economic growth, is happening in Asia. In India, of course, predominantly. This is why we wanted to have the Asia-Pacific conference this year in India, but also in the ASEAN countries. So we want to make sure that the companies view and understand the growth that we can see here, and then the business potential that comes with it. So bringing the German technology into the different markets, and then benefit from the growth that we can see in the region, almost everywhere, with few exceptions.
Okay, so we've also heard and read news items. Let's say, for example, another German company, BMW, which said that it is perhaps not keen to participate in India's PLI scheme for the auto sector, saying that perhaps the scheme that the government has designed excludes the investments already made by a company like BMW, and the government of India is only looking at fresh investments. Is that a fair assessment to make from BMW's point of view, that the government is not really looking at the millions of dollars which have already been invested, and since BMW is not looking at investing fresh money into the auto sector, perhaps it'll be excluded from the PLI scheme?
I cannot comment on any specific company, so it's not my role basically to speak about what BMW specific view on that topic is. But I think in general, if we want to take things forward, it is important to see what has already been invested in India. I think it's a fair assessment to say we are already here. We're employing already thousands of people. We have invested enormous amounts into into car manufacturing here, and that should not be disregarded. I mean, there's a bit of a difference, I guess, when the way German companies approach new markets. They're not necessarily going full in. We do this step by step, but you see what has already been invested in India over the last decades, not only by individual companies, but across the board, and the employment that is being generated, then I think that should in a certain way also be appreciated and evaluated, because this is a starting point or a great base to do the next step and to grow in the market. And I mean, the companies have been here for decades, so I think that they're very important players in the ecosystem and they're in the industry, and they should be part of taking things forward.
So from a German perspective and from a European perspective at large, how do you see India's policy framework and the policy ecosystem evolve from here to ensure that ease of doing business for global companies actually gets enhanced?
When we look and when we talk to our member companies, and we have close to 4,000 member companies, mostly in India, one of the topics that they tell us is most important for them is the integration into the global supply chains. And we're always talking about it, the diversification, the de-risking, and the potential that we see in India to become more integrated into global supply chains. And when it comes to that, what is important for the companies is that the whole process is smooth. And that means the process of importing goods or components or raw materials, processing them in India, and probably to export, because it's not all for the local market. Right. India wants to be a global production hub, and that means that we want to serve different markets in Asia, markets in Europe from India, and therefore the whole process is being looked at, and that makes it an interesting investment destination for the companies. So this is why we are very much looking at FTA, I mean the free trade and investment protection agreement that is currently being discussed. And when I say currently, I think it started in 2006 and now we are 2024. We started maybe 2.5 years back, and we would very much like to see progress there to make it easier for the companies. And of course, that would include, from our view, also the harmonization of industrial standards. Very important, because if you have to go for local standards, if you have to get your products certified under different standards, that adds cost and complexity. So it would be very good, and this is one of the key topics that we hear now from our member companies. It would be great to harmonize that, because that's ease of doing business, and that will speed up things, and that will reduce cost and make India more competitive.
Great. So, I think the China Plus One strategy was a great narrative until about a week ago, in fact 2 weeks ago, when China decided to offer a stimulus to its economy. So in light of the Chinese stimulus, how do you see the China Plus One strategy for global diversification of supply chains pan out?
My personal view is that it is going to continue, because the economic stimulus or the lack of economic growth in China was one factor why companies didn't look at China necessarily for additional investment. But we have the geopolitical situation. We have the pandemic experience from just a few years back. We have natural disasters. So I think there is a move towards decentralization of your production and making sure that you are active and present in many different countries and margins and markets. And not all your eggs are in one basket. So I think we will see this trend to continue in the next coming years.
Okay, and talking in the context of the entire Asia-Pacific region, how strongly do you think India is placed right now when you talk about the China Plus One strategy as compared to its peers in Asia?
I think India is well placed. I mean, look at the numbers, and I think this is what industry looks at first. I mean, you have the 5th largest economy in the world. You have the fastest growing major economy in the world. You have a young population. So all the numbers that we can see make India a very attractive investment destination, and they also compared to the peers. Obviously, India is not alone. It's not on an island, and we always have to look at what the others are doing and how India can be placed as a premier investment destination. I think the topics that I said before, they would be relevant to see, because we're looking at the global markets as well, not only at the local markets. In this sense, again, this ease of doing business in the sense of supply chain diversification and integration, that would be still something to look at, because it's not a natural move. It's not like a law of nature that everything now has to come to India. I think it's always good to keep an eye on the competition and see how can we improve. I mean, there's a lot of improvement. If you look at infrastructure, if you look at the digital infrastructure, there's a lot of improvement, but that should continue.
Okay. Now, we are talking about the FTA, the potential FTA between India and Germany, but talking on the back of, or rather at the heels of the IGC, I think Germany has committed 10 billion euros of investments coming into India by 2030. Now, India parallelly has also signed the FTA with Switzerland, where we are talking much bigger numbers. We are looking at about $100 billion of investment coming in the same time horizon. How do you think this 10 billion can actually be scaled up to a much larger figure of, let's say, about 100 billion and beyond?
Good question, but I think we're talking about two different topics here. The 100 billion that have been promised, I think it's over 15 years time period, and it includes private investment. It is the commitment that investors from Switzerland or from EFTA will invest over the next 15 years the amount of 100 billion. Whereas the 10 billion that we are talking about, or that you were referring to,
the next 6 years.
is the next 6 years, and it is basically government supported funding for energy transition and in the terms of economic collaboration. This does not include private investment. If you look at private investment that is coming freshly from Germany into India, if you look or consider the reinvestment of German companies which are already active in India and add that up for the next 15 years, I'm sure we can match the number.
Okay. So apart from green energy, green transitions, what seem to be the sunrise sectors where a government as well as a private sector partnership can be forged going forward?
These are definitely two of the most important areas that I would see. Another topic is probably healthcare and medical technology. I think we are going to see a lot of growth and a lot of technology being developed, AI-driven as well. And another topic that would be important for me to add, it's not necessarily investment, is the whole topic of skilling and training.
Right.
If you look at Germany is probably one of the best or the best vocational training systems in the world.
Right.
And I would like to see how we can bring this to India, because if you look at what the Indian government is focusing on, it is skilling and training the workforce. In order to have a world-class industry, you need to have a world-class workforce. You need to skill them, train them, because we will see other production equipment, and a new generation of production. For this, you need a skilled workforce, and we would be very much, as a chamber also with our members, would be very, very interested in bringing this system to India, because I think this has been a secret of success for many German companies, that they have a skilled workforce not only at top level but also on the shop floor level, in production, in process and product development.
Right. So talk to us about the partnership between the state of Maharashtra in India and the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany, where we are talking about an exchange program of skilled labor which can migrate from India to Germany, and we are talking big numbers here. We are looking at about 500,000 skilled Indian workers to find employment in Germany. Just talk us through the strategy and the rollout of a scheme like that.
I don't think it's a secret when I say that Germany has a lack of skilled labor, and it is going to be of increasing importance to close that gap for Germany. So the idea is very simple. There are many qualified people in India, and they would be very interested to also work abroad. And Germany needs that skilled labor, basically across the industries, where we talk about the medical sector, whether we talk about hospitality, but also in industry. We need in Germany skilled people in all different job profiles, and India has that talent pool. So the idea is really that we consolidate the requirements that we see in Baden-Württemberg specifically, and reach out to partners in Maharashtra to train the people accordingly, to prepare them for the work in Germany. That includes language training, intercultural training, to be better prepared, and then basically give them the opportunity to work in Germany.
So what are the modalities of this partnership? Is it going to be private sector employment for these Indian skilled workers who move to Germany, or is it going to be supported by the government in Germany?
No, the government basically sets the framework and makes it easier for people to come, because that has been a restriction in Germany for the longest time.
And once they're there, they've got to find work on their own?
It's private sector driven. The employment will be with the private sector.
Okay, and the skills that we're talking about here are going to be specifically what skills? We are looking at trades like plumbing and carpenters and electricians, or are we looking at deeper skills which should be relevant, let's say, for the auto sector in Germany?
We're talking about all the skills that you just mentioned. Basically, this is the situation that we have that shortage, obviously, or that we have that shortage in almost all areas. The one that you mentioned, but also in the industry. So yes, of course, we're also talking about deeper skills in automotive production, in machine, in chemicals, wherever these skills are needed. And again, that works so well with the German vocational training system, because we can skill the people. And the idea is to say, why don't we start skilling the people in India on the basis of the German vocational training system, because then they can get through the training, which in Germany is normally a 3-year training, and it is a combination of practical and classroom training. Give them the opportunity to learn the language, to learn about the culture, and then bring them to Germany. That helps them to understand what are the requirements in their future job, and that helps the companies to make sure that they get trained persons, and they are trained in the same way that any German apprentice would actually be trained at, and that's the idea. And again, when you talk about sectors, there are too many to list them.
Elucidate here. Right, let's talk about the German economy. Do you think the German economy is now finally finding its way out of the woods, because it was the first country to get into technical recession? And the data, except for employment, which has seen a bit of an uptick, but data on the manufacturing index, the PMI, for example, does not seem to be very healthy still. So what is the way forward for the German economy?
Yes, unfortunately, the numbers are still not indicating that we reached the bottom and now things are picking up. The employment is not the unemployment is not increasing as fast as you would expect it, but that's mostly due to demographics, and that in this case actually help us in order to avoid larger scale unemployment. But the economic growth is still, we're still waiting for this impetus, and I think it is a combination that has been there. It's high energy prices, it is the lack of skilled labor, by the way, is also a factor that many of the companies see as the biggest risk for their business development in the coming years. And it is a lot of regulatory framework, so the companies are suffering from bureaucratic hurdles as well, taxation. I mean, there's a lot of different topics that influence it, and I think this is also, I mean, economy is also about perception. Economy is about optimism as well, and I think this is lacking right now in Germany, probably more than in other countries, to say, no, we can get back on track. And so this is like a little bit of a downward move also from that angle.
Do you see German companies becoming a little more risk averse than they used to be? And I'm talking companies like Volkswagen, for example, which took early steps into the transition from ICE engines to electric engines, but had to shut down one of its plants, and that resulted, of course, in a great upheaval from employees who were laid off. And similarly, a large company like Bosch, which is again an ancillary to the auto sector, shedding about 3,000 people from its factories. So do you think German entrepreneurs, German companies are not really willing to wait it out, wait for the good times to start rolling again, and are taking knee-jerk reactions when perhaps financially they would be in a position to support their labor for a few more months?
I don't see that German companies are getting less or more risk averse than they have been. Traditionally, I think the German companies tend to be on the, let's say, very analytical side and as I said before, do the market entry in steps rather than to have one big investment and ask for the red carpet when they come. It's really a step-by-step approach. And I don't see that that has changed. I don't think that there is more risk aversion when it comes to that. And what you mentioned about the employment, I mean, if we look back just a few years and look into the Corona or COVID pandemic, that's exactly what you just mentioned is exactly what German companies did. They held on to their employment. They did not let people go. They kept their employment numbers where they are, and that helped them after the shock was over, and after when economy picked up again, helped them to get a jump start. So I think this is actually a very traditional understanding in most of the German companies. That we're not hiring easy, we're not firing easy. Right. We try to keep the people on board as long as we can, because companies understand how valuable the knowledge is that they have and the experience they have in their workforce. So there's no easy firing of people or closing. This is a long and painful process, and the companies don't take that easy. I think it's just right now due to the fact that they don't see enough growth globally necessarily, or specifically not in Europe, to keep up the levels that they have. So they focus on growth markets. Again, there would be a potential definitely for India, because I think some of the companies that you mentioned are growing here. They're growing rapidly. Right. So maybe it's a bit of a refocus that is happening to say we move employment from our traditional markets, which are stable but not going, to markets where we see growth, and that is happening.
Okay. Let's move to Indians, or let's say Asian companies wanting to do business in Germany. We've spoken about German companies wanting to do business here, but if we were to consider the reverse of that, how do you see Germany's country risk at the moment? We've seen the rise of AfD in some parts of Germany. We've seen Germany grapple with its own problems with illegal immigration. So from a country risk perspective, how do you see Germany placed right now? And what is the government doing to actually make Germany the bellwether of Europe when it comes to companies wanting to invest back in Germany?
I mean, I think when we talk about country risk, I think there are various factors to be considered. One is, let's say, the financial risk, and I don't see that there is a big risk. I think Germany is, from that point of view, still a very robust and stable country and economy. Germany has a great technology base, and I think this is something that investors from India or from other Asian countries, Indo-Pacific countries, will see. There's a lot of technology available. A lot of skilled people are available. So I think that makes it an attractive investment destination. When you talk about, of course, the political topics that you mentioned, yes, it is a concern that we see the right wing growing so fast and winning elections, at least on a state level. That's not, unfortunately, that's not a German phenomenon. You see that in many other countries.
That's right.
This is a global phenomenon that we see, and we have a global phenomenon of illegal migration, and we have a global phenomenon that societies feel that they have to step up against it. So it is a factor that needs to be addressed, absolutely, and the German government is taking steps, like other governments are as well, to control it, to better control it, to have a better control over illegal migration. But again, that's something that I think is also more like an issue that needs to be addressed globally, or at least in collaboration. There's no single country that can solve that issue. It's really the question of how do we address the sources, the reasons for skilled migration, rather than trying to fight it off in the countries where illegal migrants end up.
Right. Stefan, before I let you go, there's another interesting aspect that I want to quickly touch upon, and that is tourism. Now, when Indians like to travel abroad and when they look at Europe as, as a continent that they want to travel to, Germany doesn't feature in the top 3 or 4 destinations that they would like to go to. France features, Italy, Spain. There are many other countries that actually precede Germany when it comes to looking at tourism in Europe. Is the German government worried about that? And is there something that it wants to do to attract Indians who are really taking to the skies and flying abroad to actually make a pit stop in Germany?
Yes, the numbers are as you just mentioned, that, and all the countries that you mentioned are beautiful countries, and I can only recommend to visit all of the countries that you mentioned in Europe. And but that Germany should absolutely be added to the list of destinations in Germany. It is an attractive country. I mean, from the mountains to the seaside, everything is there. Historic places, historic cities, so many places to visit. And there is a German tourism board in India, and I know I've just spoken with them just the other week. They are trying to work more on it to make sure that Indian travelers understand just how attractive Germany is as a tourist destination.
Right, and comes from a man who's sitting with me a day after Oktoberfest in Germany ended. But Stefan Halusa, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on News9.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.